the series of events that occurred in my life, losing my mother at 24, being in a sociopathic relationship, then being in another relationship where I landed as a single mother with an 8-month-old, and then building an incredible life for my daughter and I had to do that through brute force. I had to do that through shut it down, armor it up, go, go, go.
Tracy Litt, the Lit Factor. Welcome back to our second podcast. And for the audience, if you didn't listen to the first one, you got to go listen to the first one. But Tracy, I'm thrilled to be back here with you and having this conversation today.
I'm so excited. I love getting to spend time with you and the beautiful audience listening.
Amazing. Well, they say like minds, right? So it's that time of year. It's this holiday season. I was just looking at my calendar going, this is really my last week right now of like work. I've got to finish off a training session tomorrow, some coaching on Thursday and Friday. And then that's it. I'm shutting my office down until the new year. And, this is a time of year of reflections and really thinking about what went well, what didn't go so well, what were our challenges. And you just finished a client event yesterday, which was super cool because you didn't even charge for it. It was just, let's give back and work with people and have them spend time going through this exercise. So that's where I wanted to start with you today, which is, thinking about where we're at, and a place of reflection. Talk to me about your year, right? I mean, I know you do this for a lot of people, but, how has this year been for you? How would you describe it? What worked for you? What didn't work? What were some of your takeaways? I know it's a loaded question, but
it totally is. I love it. I love
that.
it though, because we get to go anywhere, reflecting and so reflecting in a certain way. Okay. So really reflecting with the intention of seeking the data. Right? It really has to be, I'm going to find the honesty and I'm going to do it from a higher lens of consciousness, which means, oh, isn't that interesting? Right? Not allowing reflecting on your year to be something that it drives you into, I can't believe I didn't get far enough, or look at everything that happened. You don't get to look at it through the lens of, powerlessness or making yourself feel bad. It's really realizing that there's a lot of under-discussed elements to next level success, but one of them is honest, high conscious reflection. Carving the time, not like a quickie 10 minutes, right? But really giving yourself, because you deserve it, the space to be like, and really kind of going through it. So for me, from a personal perspective, it was an extraordinary year of growth because my daughter left for college. Our second, we're blended. So my eldest, who is not biologically mine, but very much my daughter. And this year, my biological daughter left for college. So that was an emotional experience that, it's like when you have a child and you're like, wow, what is this emotion and love that I'm feeling?
Right.
Where did this capacity come from? That happened, and that was incredible. That was incredible. And probably the biggest thing of the year for me.
Right.
And from a business building and kind of legacy leading perspective, the gratitude for how much service I was able to deliver, like just sitting in awe of how many moments, whether they were individual, corporate, group, live event, speaking in someone else's environment, so much gratitude. And I always ask everyone, like last night, what was the biggest wisdom that you've extracted from the lessons of 2022, right?
And what were some of those lessons? I mean, what was some of that?
For me, I learned another profound lesson in self-trust. And I learned that I need to practice the habit of asking more detailed questions when I'm making certain business endeavor decisions. Right? Because I'm so excited and I'm so detached because I'm so connected to my oneness and I trust that it's all happening for my highest good. And sometimes that, creates some bypass over what's the KPI, what's the return, let me make sure I'm asking the questions. So there was a lot of money and time and energy spent and the ROI wasn't there.
Right.
And I got to take a look at what my responsibility was in that.
Right. Right. I want to ask you a question about the reflection exercise and some of the audience, but just to respond to that, I have a similar issue, which is it's not that I don't ask enough questions. In fact, I do ask the questions, but I don't sell. And it's a problem, right? Because if you're not going to promote and push and sell, and I'm not saying snake oil salesperson, right? But really putting in the exercise and the effort to go out and find opportunities and do business. We do a lot of like B2B, right? But for years I've been in this position of purity, which is like the work is pure, the development is pure, the coaching is pure. If we do it well, if we deliver it, then people will come. If you build it, people will come, type of thing. And I think that's half the equation. What my lesson this year was that I'm actually doing myself and the business and our clients and the work that we're doing a great injustice by taking a position of not wanting to promote it or, in quotation, sell it. And the opposite sort of kicks in, which is now my sort of mindset is, fuck yeah, I'm going to sell this as much as I can. And I want to change the word sell to maybe communicate it, to promote it, but to share it, but to get it, but to build it, right? So it's a really important thing. And the other side of that was my responsibility for looking after the team. I mean, the business feeds a lot of people, right? So, if I'm not going to be driving that, then, our own community, our own village is sort of the ones with no shoes and suffering throughout that, right?
Right. No, I resonate with that. That was probably 2 years ago. My concept of time can be a little off, but let's say it was my 2 year ago or 3 year ago lesson was exactly what you just shared. And
Mm-hmm.
here's what I realized, like, Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams. It's not if you build it, they will come. It's this one small addition. If you build it and invite them,
Mm-hmm.
they will come.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So being able to look at it through that lens, because you were saying a different word for selling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making the invitation over and over and over and over and over again, because that becomes the service
Yeah,
and that
that's
becomes the support of your team.
right. You defined a word for me. I've been sort of, battling with, okay, what is the word, right? What is the description of what I'm trying to do? And it's the invitation. This is what we're doing. Love you to be a part of it. Come and join us. And this is when it is, right? So cool. Very cool. I want to come back to the reflection. So you said, it's a really important exercise that we go into this consciously, right? Because if you're not careful, you could sort of take it from a place of catastrophe, right? What didn't work well? Why I didn't make it? So, I mean, generally, do you find more people come into these exercises with that negative lens? And you as a facilitator and coaches, though, are helping them move past that. And the second part to that is why? Why do we do this as human beings? Why do we come in with this negative, oh, the glass is half full?
Yes. So I do not find, so last night, since it was clients only, past, present, um, they didn't have that perspective because they're clients of the Lit Factor.
Right.
And we don't roll like that, right? So that was a unique situation. I am breeding and mentoring highly conscious leaders. And part of that is recognizing that we always see things through data and curiosity, which is operating from your fifth dimension of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
It is highly common for people to come into an exercise like this who aren't awakened, working on themselves, aware. And it's not because they have the desire to utilize it as a mechanism to make themselves feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they habitually are stuck in that, because the mind is wired and the nervous system is wired to ensure survival, which means find the problem, seek the negative. Let's
Mm-hmm.
point out how come he's not further along by now, versus, right, our minds are not wired to be like, look at how amazing you are.
Mm-hmm.
Look at you did so much more than you even intended to do, right? And that's what makes the work that you and I do so critical.
Right.
It's not luxurious. It's an essentialist thing to do this kind of internal work on yourself, because we're behind the eight ball when we start. because our wiring is like, no, come back to what's wrong, come back to what's wrong,
Right.
right? So that's really what's happening at a biological level.
Right, right. And it's, you know, if you don't catch that, if you don't start to work the muscle of catching the thought and then reframing it, we just might be victim to our own mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard about the stages of changing behavior? Because this is what you talk about, consciousness, reflection. So, you know, in the world that we live in, which is coaching and development, you're at some capacity trying to change behavior, right? So trying to rewire some of those automatic pre-programmed behaviors that I approach with, right? And the problem with when we're trying to change behavior is we're trying to change behavior. And my ex-partner taught me this was you're trying to change behavior at a behavioral level. I come in, I say, look, Tracy, you need to like speak up more. You need to be more assertive in these meetings, or I need you to be more cooperative with Jimmy over there because Jimmy's a little sensitive, or I need you to be nicer. I just need you to be a little nicer, right? And we look at these people and we go, yeah, okay, cool. I understand the words coming out your mouth, but I have no freaking clue on what to do or what to change. And there are 4 very distinct stages that you have to go through before we can actually shift that behavior. So the first stage of it is what you've just described, is going from an unconscious state to a conscious state, right? Grabbing the steering wheel, right? Like if you think about how many times we drive a car, sometimes we're like zombies driving, right? We're like, oh, right, and the thing beeps and dings and tells we're at the address. And you know, I'm in Costa Rica, so if you drive unconsciously, it's a problem because you got cows and
I've been
motorcycles and
there, I get it. Yes.
right, little things jumping out. So you got to be really, really aware. And I'm also a motorcycle rider, right? And I think, you know, when I learned or did my motorcycle course, it made me a better driver because one of the things they really drill in you when getting your motorcycle license is a couple of things. One, it's not if you get in an accident, it's when, right? And 2, the second you start to ride that bike unconsciously is when the when happens, right? So you got to go from this unconscious state to the conscious state, which really now brings us up to the next stage, which is reflection, right? And reflection is an important stage for us to operate with governance and managing that, because as you said, if we're not careful, we start to float back into that I didn't achieve enough, right? So if we think about from a place of consciousness and then reflection, okay, what did work well, and you know, how did I end up achieving this, and you know, where were some of my challenges, my obstacles? How did I respond to that? You know, what were my things that I implemented after? Okay, this is all reflection. Cool. And now we move into the third stage, which is insight. And insight is at the beginning of sort of adopting the new practices. Okay, so I could identify the problem. I know why it happens, I know when it happens, and I know what to do in it, right? Now we move into the fourth stage, which is the ultimate stage for all of us, which is the shifting of mind, the mindset shift, right? The going from the pessimistic to the optimistic, that half full to the, you know, half empty to the half full. And it is only once we go through those 4 stages that we can truly now start to adopt and develop and practice a new behavior, right? But it all begins with the consciousness.
Yes, it all begins with consciousness. And so where you use insight, I use the word wisdom, right? Same thing.
Mhm.
Because once you have that, you can do something with the data. You can make new decisions and set a new course for co-creation because of that insight and that wisdom. And you know, what you were just sharing when you were talking about, it is very common for those that feel like they're helping to guide or coach to say, change that way of being, right? They're focused on the output and they're asking the person to change the output. Like you just said, I just needed you to like be nicer, right?
Mhm.
And part of something that has to happen during all these beautiful stages you were mentioning and beyond is changing the input of what's happening internally in our nervous systems. Right? Because the reason why someone is, let's say, we'll call it edgy or short, especially in organizations and corporations,
Mhm.
is not because anyone desires to be like that. There's some kind of imprint in their system. There's something that has to happen in order to change the external, in order to change the output, AKA behavior of said person. You cannot focus on the external and the output. You have to focus on the input. You change the input, you get a new output.
Hey, so sorry to interrupt, and thank you for listening. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you like today's episode and you want to learn more about some of our programs, like the Better Leader program that can change your life, go ahead and click the link below. Right, absolutely. This is where responsibility kicks in. I talk a lot about this, which is it's our responsibility to work these tools, right? It's not an easy thing. None of this
No.
personal growth, self-awareness, operating at a higher conscious level, managing your anatomic nervous system, like
Yeah.
not reacting from feelings of the past. I in our emotional management session, this was years and years and years ago. And I'll sort of acknowledge that even though I was teaching the concept, I probably didn't understand it deep enough.
Mm.
And there was one line that said, your perceptions, if you're not careful, will contribute to you reacting from your feelings of the past.
Yes.
Right? Today, I get that. Today, that is a line that I think a lot about, which is, am I reacting from feelings of the past, right? Or am I actually operating in an independent position right now, dealing with this person or this situation or this stress? And it's an activation. It's not an automatic thing, right? So really important to do.
Really important to do. And this is such a beautiful moment because one of the areas you just described is completely unconscious, zombie-like state, and one is conscious. So when we are reacting, we are being reactive means that you are unconscious and essentially walking but sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because reacting is autopilot on who you've been and how you've defaulted in the past over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
To move to response, right? Because what are we really seeking? We're moving out of reactivity and into response. To move to response, which is directly connected to
Right.
the ability to respond, um, requires you to wake up. It requires your consciousness because, and this is the kicker, when your system is aroused by your automatic default program, by your reaction, right, to just like feel a certain way, you're just going to be pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
It takes consciousness to notice that you're activated, to be more committed to who you're becoming than who you've been, to not let the hormones of that arousal to basically like you're like getting off on like how pissed off you are, right? And you're rooting yourself in it,
Right.
to have that moment to transcend and overcome what's ultimately, and I call it an emotional addiction, just beating that emotional addiction of who you've been, to transcend yourself in that moment is a victory.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the part that makes transformation something that only happens when you're willing to show up for it,
Right.
right? It's huge. It's hugely important. And I think that becomes one of the things I'm most excited about, like now and all the years to come. We're in it. We're in the consciousness revolution, right? It doesn't have to be me and you, like, trying to make people realize, like everyone who's listening, this is science, this is research, this is data, right? The proof is right there for you. Are you willing to
Mm-hmm.
get uncomfortable? Because you were saying before, right? Like it's hard. And so of course, so the option is experience a life that's shallow and comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
or experience and realize your potential in depth and discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there's no contest.
Correct. Correct. You would describe. I'll share this. I'll share this. I am an angry personality, right? Like when you look at my psychological profile, it is what we call the angry child, which is one aspect of your personality, which is my strongest child trait. Now, what is the child trait to your personality? It's the default emotion that you go to the most, right? It's the coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And it's addictive. And I work very hard and consciously, continuously throughout my life to manage. Now, when I say I'm an angry personality, let's say the volume of that anger is way less today than it once was, but that's been the practice over the years, right? But if you're not careful, right, back to that consciousness, even though like it's been years and years and years and years of practice, the second I say, okay, I don't need to think about this anymore, or that's not me, will be the second I revert back into that. So, in some regards, these exercises, and maybe you'll agree with this, it's a forever thing. It's a lifetime exercise, right? It's like you
Yes.
practice it.
It is. And that's why, I like calling them practices. I don't love using the word tools because then
Yeah.
it denotes like, when you think about it, go grab it, but then put it back. No, it's like you are committed. you are someone who understands that this whole like human game is one of evolution,
Mhm.
right? And to be evolving means that your awareness is growing, you are in practice, right? It does, you know, you can still go on vacation. It doesn't mean that every moment of every day, because I think that there's a world where it can be like it's okay, you know, you just go enjoy yourself. There are moments where you can idle,
Mhm.
right? Because you've done what you've done, and you're you embody this work. You don't do this work. You don't checklist this work. You become someone who's self-aware. You become someone who non-judgmentally observes themselves. You become someone that doesn't let limited thoughts go past your conscious awareness. You become someone that chooses open-heartedness versus self-protection. The practices allow for the embodiment and the becoming process.
Mhm.
That's, to me, the difference in sustainable transformation or hits of progress, right? Like
Mhm.
hits of happiness, like it's like a little false, but it's like there, versus sustainability.
Right. Very true. All right. I want to switch gears for a sec.
Okay.
Let me ask you your opinion on society, people today. I mean, what do you think we need to do in the world? I mean, we're technically out of the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
going into a new year. This is the time of growth and change and transformation. What do you think we all need to be mindful of in society?
We all deserve to release the trauma that we've collectively experienced over the past 2.5 years. Like we really need to just sit here. I'm
Mhm.
intentionally lowering my tone. No matter what you perceive occurred for you in this past 2.5 years, there was a collective physiological, energetic trauma that occurred. And the recognition of that and the grace, the giving ourselves and our collective, right? The other beautiful beings around you, the grace and allowing that to move out of your cells and out of your body, right? Through expression, shaking, rage rooms, crying, punching bags, grounding, all these gorgeous, there's so much available.
Mhm.
That's thing one, because if we don't do that first, we can't get to the next move, which is starting to unarmor our hearts.
Mhm.
Our society is so armored. We are so overly masculine energetically. We are so me, self-identified, right? Which creates so much division and so much judgment. And in order to move into collective compassion, like talking about this makes me emotional,
Mhm.
because that's where we need to go. I mean, like, you don't need to watch the news to understand what's happening in our world universally,
Right.
so that we can open our hearts and recognize that we are safe and we don't need to self protect. And that the way we're going to get where all of us want to go individually for our own beautiful gains, which you deserve, and collectively and generationally, is to come into true compassionate community
Mhm.
with one another and allow yourself to be seen. Yeah.
Mm. I couldn't agree more. I like the way you described it with, we've got armored hearts.
Armored hearts. And I can speak to it because mine was.
Hmm.
I realized this in terms of like, what was I, not from a reflection standpoint, but the past 2 years, the thing that I have been personally in my growth ascension journey working on is just that. Because I realized not only societally, right, the series of events that occurred in my life, losing my mother at 24, being in a sociopathic relationship, then being in another relationship where I landed as a single mother with an 8-month-old, and then building an incredible life for my daughter and I
Hmm.
had to do that through brute force. I had to do that through shut it down, armor it up, go, 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 all masculine, go, don't feel, don't look up, go. And it served me up until a point, because I was able to create something really great for Taylor and I, right? Which then opened me up to meeting David and having my other daughters and this whole gorgeous life in the business. And then I realized, oh, your heart's super closed. And if you're going to get to the next level of what your potential is and what you're being called to do as a vessel of impact and influence for this world, you're going to have to, like, it actually, Greg, feels like 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 a chisel.
Yeah, you're
And
prying it open.
off, yeah, like I'm
Yeah,
clipping off parts of the concrete that I so beautifully built up around it.
right, right. How much or how did your spouse show up in this, David, right? I mean, how did he contribute to this stone being chipped away?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you for asking that. He taught me that it's safe to let myself be loved.
Right, right. Which would have been
He,
difficult back.
I just want to add this because it's
Yeah,
important. His security, he doesn't even realize this about himself, but meaning his security and his energy is like, he doesn't care if he's masculine or feminine or like whatever, taught me that I can not be all things to all people. I can stop pushing through, right? And I can receive love and I can be cared for and I can be guided and I can be held like the goddess that I am.
mhm,
And that was a huge contribution to
yeah.
my company.
That's a pure example of what you just described, which is being able to let go of that trauma from the past, from your previous relationship, and being able to truly, operate once again with consciousness and put yourself in a position to receive. Because if you didn't do that, he would have been the same person and might have done the same things, but it just wouldn't have penetrated, landed, impacted, you know, supported. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's why I think it's so important that we have the right partner in life. You know, I think Jordan Peterson said this recently, which he said, don't get married for love, right? Marry someone that you want to partner at life with, right?
Yes.
Love
Yes.
fades, right? But it's the partnership that will recreate that love over and over and over again.
Mm.
There's another very cool concept called the imago theory that says relationships go through three very distinct cycles. So the first stage is romantic love, which very simply is gooey, gooey, ooey, ooey, right? It's where you
Lust.
fall,
Yes.
right? Lust, you fall asleep on the phone, you wake up with your neck all crinked, and you're like, oh, are you still there?
Yes.
Do all that, like, teenage stuff. And what you fall in love with is the opposite to who you are, right? And we could get into your parental relationships, which is the provider, and et cetera, et cetera. Right. Fast forward that stage now moves into the power struggle, which is everything that you loved is now what you hate. Right. So you go from, if we just use your significant other as an example, they're available and they're attentive and they're warm and compassionate. And you're like, fuck this. I'm not interested in that anymore. Right.
Yes.
And we end up attacking what we love. But back to the partnership, there's a number of stages that go through the power struggle. But the point of this all, and it's a very long concept, but the point of all is there's a third stage. And the third stage is something called a conscious relationship, which is you navigate the world of the power struggle. You manage our own expectations and impacts positively and negatively in the relationship. We communicate consciously. We demonstrate emotional intelligence and management. We serve the relationship more. And if you do all of that, you end up recreating romantic love on a much more stable, solid foundation, and it goes around and around and around and around, right? And that's where you go to someone after 30 years, you say, what's the secret? And it's all the same advice, right? Be kind, right? Date
Yeah.
each other,
Yeah.
right? Et cetera, et cetera. Very cool.
Yeah.
So come back to reflections this year. So you had some major reflections and gained some awesome wisdom. How do you now take that forward next year? What are you focusing on? What are you going to do maybe more of? I hate the question, what are you going to do differently? But what are you going to really sort of double down on next year?
Yeah. So doubling down on just our commitment to being world class in our delivery of our services and the love and adoration of our clients. I
Cool.
mean, no question. Doubling down on in real life, like I'm going to touch, physically hug, stare into the eyes of as many beings as I possibly can. So we are turning that up internally, bringing in more in-house team, right? Not vendoring out, but really, really saying, great, we know who we are now, we know where we're going now, we have all of this insight and wisdom that we can apply, and bringing in more rock stars that can live in their genius, so that this can be the year where I completely step into the visionary role that has built us so far, right? And just serve and coach and speak and talk and serve and coach and speak and talk again and again and again and again. And
Mhm.
that just jazzes me, because that's my flow, right? When we start companies and we start businesses, and especially through the lens of service, it's not the administration and the building and all that stuff that you do it for. You do it for the calling. And I'm going to live in that calling. And it's magical.
That's amazing. That's
Yes.
amazing.
What about you?
For me,
Yes.
I'm gonna kill it next year. I think I had some big reflections this year, which was, for many years I've been running my father's business out of this unconscious need to serve a legacy. Right? And if you go back to early days of the business, even when my father was involved, it was Greg Witz that was driving a lot. He was the kid that was going in and training and coaching, and like the clients were asking for him, and this, doing the business and running it, and built it. And obviously he passed in 2012, and at that point, long story short, I ended up buying the business for $1 because the business was financially in shit. Right? It was being run. We were doing amazing work, but financially it was not being managed properly.
Mm-hmm.
So, upon all of that, you try to go at it. And for many years, there's been this, call it unconscious need for me to do it the way historically it's been done. Right. But in 2021, the answer was for me, right, which was, we were still in the height of the pandemic. No one wanted to work. No one was training. No one was coming in. So it was all me. Right. And I was like, no, we have a calling, we have a purpose, and we, very similar to what you did. You put on events just for clients to come and be a part of it. That's what we did. And we killed it. We absolutely killed it. And then this year, 2022 rolled around, and it's like, okay, everything's going to open up again, and people are going back to the office, and let's go back to the old model that we were doing in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And it obviously didn't work. So, for me, it finally got to a point, and I kind of said it earlier, which is, I didn't want to sell, right? I've always also resisted being the front of the business. I don't want to be the guy in the front for whatever insecure reason, what it was. And I think it was more, I didn't want to be a narcissist, right? Or I didn't want to uh, uh, um, be portrayed as that. But I finally accepted what my role and my position and my purpose and why I'm here, right? And it's to do what I do, right? I'm extremely gifted and talented at this, and I need to live it. So that's what I'm doing. And also, we're going to continue to build a great team. And that's it. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. It really is. And it is so safe for you to be loud and out front, right? And it really, really is. And recognizing that whatever, you do this, so
Mhm.
you know this, but that's also why phenomenal coaches and mentors have phenomenal coaches and mentors, right? Um, you never have to fear being the thing that you never wanted to be, or that you didn't want to be
Correct.
perceived as, because that's not who you are.
Correct. Correct. Right? But it takes us, we've all got to go along our journey to get there
Sure.
sometimes, right?
That's the whole point of our relationship, and how in the conversations we have, evolving, whether we're talking about organizationally, corporations, workplace, or we're talking about life and home, or we're talking about wealth and money, or we're talking about romantic and love and sex and relationship. It's all about going within and recognizing that that's where we evolve, and that's
Mhm.
what we're here to do.
Correct. Correct. And it begins with us, and it begins with the mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Awesome. All right. The last question we ask at the end of the show, it's the better human question, which I think we've already answered a lot of these things. But, considering the fact that we're about to start a new chapter, what could we all do to be amazing, better humans tomorrow?
Open your heart and lead with compassion. That wins. Be the love from which you are derived. We are pure love. We are pure consciousness. Be that. The rest will solve itself.
It's amazing. And the world needs it, right? We need to be these light workers and be a positive ripple effect.
Yes, it makes me want to sing. Remember what the world needs now is love, sweet love. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got a good voice, by the way.
Thank you. I was the lead singer of a rock and roll cover band back in the day.
Really?
Fun fact. Yes.
Okay. Well, by the way, what was the band's name?
Trixie and the Nortons after the Honeymooners.
Actually, you were Trixie.
I was.
Okay. By the way, that's a real good what's it called? Alter ego, right? I could see you being a Trixie if you showed up and said, "Hi, I'm Trixie." I'd be like, "Okay, I'll buy that."
It's my feisty shadow side.
Amazing. And if we got on Spotify and searched that, is it going to pop up?
No, we didn't make it to Spotify. Personal concerts and small like bar gigs.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, listen, that's back to what you're doing, entertaining and rocking the audience.
Yeah, exactly. That's why every session we do, we open with music, and it's so fun.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, Tracy, you're awesome. Thank you for being here. To the audience, go check out the Litt Factor, Litt Factor. Tracy Litt, you can find her on Instagram and check out her website as well. Speak to her about coaching and your events. And for us, if you need any, if you like today's episode and you want to share it, go ahead and do so. Go ahead and go ahead and subscribe. And to the audience, we wish you the best over the holiday season and into the new year. Stay happy, stay healthy, continue being better humans, and we will see you next time. Hey, thanks for listening today. And if you enjoyed today's episode, you're going to love the next one.